and implementation thereof. They serve as an advisory body to the City Council concerning adoption of or amendments to the zoning regulations and zoning map, and to make recommendations thereon. The third is to call a public hearing to determine proper zoning for a tract of land or for an area, and to undertake such actions as are necessary to exercise its delegated powers as indicated by adopted ordinance. For items scheduled for a public hearing, residents will have the opportunity to comment on agenda items in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act. Members of the commission shall not discuss, deliberate, or make any decisions on topics not posted as an agenda item. Speakers should state their full name, their full address for the record, and address all remarks to the commission. The commission asks that the public remarks be limited to no more than 3 minutes. The next, we'll have an open forum. The open forum welcomes public comments at a regularly scheduled meetings. In addition to the public comment or on agenda items, the commission offers an open forum whereby citizens may comment on governance issues over which the city of Nacogdoches has domain. In accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, members of the commission shall not discuss, deliberate, or make any decisions on topics not posted on agenda items. Speakers should address all remarks to the commission and limit their remarks to no more than 3 minutes. Is there anybody that'd like to speak just in the open forum section? Okay. Seeing none, we'll move on to agenda item number 4. It's a consent agenda. All matters listed under the consent agenda are considered routine by the commission and will be enacted by one motion. These items include final plats where the city has found compliance with all minimum subdivision regulations. All items approved by consent are approved with any and all staff recommendations. Since there will be no separate discussion on these items, citizens wishing to address the commission regarding one or more of these items on the consent agenda may address the commission at this time as well. If any commissioner desires to discuss an item on the consent agenda, it may be moved to the regular agenda for further consideration. So we have 2 items in the consent agenda, obviously approval of minutes, and then final plat on Texas Street. And seeing that, is there a motion to approve the consent items A and B?
So move.
Is there a second?
A second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, we'll move on to the number 6, the regular agenda. First will be A, public hearing consider a zone change from R1 single family to B2 general business for lot 1A in City Block 64, located at 2827 Railroad Street. The request has been submitted by Warren Sparks.
All right, good evening, Commission. Elena Chafin, City Planner, City of Nacogdoches. I just wanted to take a quick moment to note that this item was originally presented to the Planning and Zoning Commission at your regular meeting on February 8th, 2021. At that time, the Commission voted to postpone the public hearing to the March 8th meeting to allow staff to meet with the applicant and explore alternatives to the access for the development. Due to delays related to our February winter storm, we weren't able to have that meeting in time for the March meeting. So at the March 8th P&Z meeting, the Commission, again, upon request of the applicant, voted to postpone the public hearing to allow that meeting to take place to this meeting. And we'll go over the details of that discussion later on, but I just kind of want to remind the Commission and those watching at home how we got to where we are today. So with that, we will move forward with staff's presentation. As a reminder, this request is for a zone change from R1 single family to B2 general business for a 10.9 acres located at 2827 Railroad Street, as shown on your screen. The general business zoning district is intended to accommodate those business activities that are oriented towards the automobile or whose operations may require limited truck access. Generally, this district is located along major traffic arteries where strip business development already exists. The applicant owns the subject property outlined in yellow and also owns the lots that are located immediately to the north, east, and west, including the private lake that you see. The lot to the north of the subject property that's located at 2807 Railroad Street, that's currently developed as a single-family residence and is the applicant's primary residence. The applicant has been using the subject property as a contractor's yard for the purpose of openly storing equipment and materials for his construction business. The applicant's been operating this business at this location for over 10 years. However, a contractor yard is only permitted in the B2 General Business Zoning District, as well as the light and heavy industrial zoning districts. This zone change request is in response to a zoning violation that was issued by the Planning and Zoning Department for conducting commercial activities in a residential zoning district. The applicant is requesting the zone change from R1 Single Family to B2 General Business in order to continue operating the business at this location. The area consists primarily of low to medium density residential zoning districts, including R3 two-family to the north, which is that light brown color, R1 single family, and R3 two-family to the east and south, being that light yellow color, and then R2 single family to the west. The surrounding land uses include single-family and undeveloped properties, as well as Carpenter Elementary, which is located just to the west of the subject property. The B2 General Business Zoning District is not compatible with the zoning of the developed uses in the area. Per the Nacogdoches Comprehensive Plan, the future land use plan does designate this area and the surrounding area as rural development. The comprehensive plan defines this land use designation as sparsely populated areas with limited development. This typically encompasses relatively large undivided tracts of land that are used for agriculture or forestry, or even widely scattered homesteads. This land use designation also includes areas that are gradually transitioning into more urban uses and development. Staff finds that the proposed B2 General Business Zoning District is not consistent with those land uses that are described in the rural development future land use designation. These are some site photos that we took of Railroad Street, which is the primary access point for the subject property. Railroad Street is a local residential street. This section of Railroad Street has a 12-foot pavement width and open ditches on each side. Local streets are typically intended to carry lower volumes of traffic and serve as direct access to residential and neighborhood-scale commercial uses. The city's current construction standards for a high-volume local street require a minimum pavement width of 32 feet with 2 travel lanes and a right-of-way width of 50 feet. The General Business Zoning District is intended to be located along collector and arterial streets, which have greater capacity to accommodate those higher volume of traffic that's typically generated by the commercial uses that are permitted under the B2 General Business Zoning District. The minimum pavement width for a collector street is 37 feet with 2 travel lanes with a right-of-way of 60 feet, which is much larger than the 12-foot pavement width for this section of Railroad Street. The private driveway that serves the property consists of a mix of gravel and compacted dirt, and this serves as the sole access for both the existing commercial business and the private residence located just to the north. The heavy equipment and vehicle storage surface area is also comprised of compacted dirt. Staff finds that the public street and private drive are not adequate to support the heavy construction equipment and dump trucks that access this property to serve the business. These are some additional photos of the property from the street. Here, these are just some additional photos showing that there is a large area of the property that's not being used for the commercial activity, and there's some existing mature vegetation located along that street frontage. These are photos that were actually taken on the property. The applicant allowed us to come on and take pictures of the current activities. The noise and commercial traffic generated by the heavy trucks and commercial equipment that access the subject property may create a nuisance for residential uses in the area. And we have received complaints from a few of the adjacent property owners, which was the source of the request, or the source of the zoning violation that the staff issued for the property. If the zone change request is approved, the applicant would be required to screen any outdoor storage areas from adjacent property. The applicant would also be subject to the zoning ordinance that requires commercial sites with residential adjacency to build a solid screening wall and a landscape buffer adjacent to those properties that are zoned for residential. Like I pointed out in those earlier photos, the property does have several mature trees on the site, which could create a partial visual barrier of the commercial activity from the public street if the zone change was approved, the applicant could get credit for those to satisfy those requirements. These are some more photos of the commercial activities taking place on the property. The current land use of a contractor yard consists of, again, open storage of equipment and materials for roadway and pavement repair and construction business. This includes the transportation and storage of roadway construction materials, gravel, earth, asphalt, heavy construction equipment and trucks such as dump trucks or dozers. Again, the noise and commercial traffic generated by the heavy trucks that access such a subject property are not compatible with those adjacent residential uses that are already developed in the area. Planning and engineering staff did meet with the applicant to explore the alternative access that the Planning and Zoning Commission requested, and we did discuss multiple options, all of which would require one or more of the adjacent property owners to actually join the applicant in a joint zoning application, which would include more property than what's being included in the request that you're seeing this evening. So the applicant has decided to move forward with the request as presented, and then if the request is denied, he does plan on reapplying and joining some adjacent property owners in that application to allow for, or to pursue one or more of those alternative access points. And so we did talk about alternatives. There's 2 or 3 that he could pursue, all of which would require additional property be rezoned. Therefore, he's proposing to move forward with the application as presented. And again, if it gets denied, he'll be submitting another application with additional property. We did send out 6 property owner notices that are within the 200-foot notification area. We received 2 letters in opposition, and those were emailed to the commission, and we also printed those out, and they are at your place. When reviewing an application for a zone change request, the commission must consider those criteria that are outlined on your screen. If the zone change request is approved, again, other commercial activities that could be permitted under that B2 general business zoning district would be allowed, and those include multifamily, indoor commercial amusement, restaurants, offices, nightclubs, truck stops, including gasoline sales, those uses which generate much more traffic and may not be compatible with some of the existing residential development in the area. So based on these findings and those that are outlined in the staff report, staff does recommend denial of the zone change from B2 general business, from R1 single family to B2 general business. And this item is scheduled to be heard by City Council on Tuesday, April 20th. And with that, I'll conclude my presentation. I believe the applicant is also available for any questions of the commission.
Do you have any questions for Elena? No questions. And refresh my memory again why, as far as just, there's not a way to do just different type of zoning there, like to do like a planning or different type of zoning there. I mean, I think there was a reasoning why. I was just trying to refresh my memory why, if you just did like a special use or something like that there, with certain guidelines as far as what could be used for. I know, like, if we go to B2, obviously it's a broad range, and so if you were able to kind of go to a plan development and then had very specific instructions on it, why is there a reason why it can't be done like that? I'm just asking.
No, that's a great question. So in the zoning ordinance, we have a land use schedule that outlines the different zoning districts that land uses are permitted, and there's a select list of land uses that may be approved with a specific use permit, which means they wouldn't normally be allowed in that district, but with special approval, City Council can approve those land uses. A contractor yard isn't listed under one of those specific use permits. It's only the B2 general business and then light and heavy industrial zoning districts. A planned development district is an option. However, planned development districts are really intended to create zoning districts that are unique, that offer a land use or development that's not typical in Nacogdoches, or something that's kind of outside the box that wouldn't fit into our normal application of our zoning ordinances. It's not meant to allow for a waiver to the land use. And so in that regard, it wouldn't be appropriate for a planned development district because it's essentially just trying to get a variance to the actual land use, whereas a zone change is more appropriate for that type of application.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you, Elena. Would the applicant like to come up and speak?
The applicant, I thought he was in attendance, but he may be running late.
Okay. Well, we'll move on to public hearing. So anybody that'd like to speak for or against this, feel free to come up and speak. And again, if you would state your name and your address, please.
David Connolly, own the property at 2620 Railroad. And I'd just like to kind of confirm that y'all got clarified on, in response to Mr. Sparks' comments. He said that, nobody else was complaining. I don't know if you recall that, but he did that, so I'd say everything was fine down there, and that suggested that, that I was just this lone malcontent crackpot filing the complaint. And I emailed Ms. Chafin and requested that she confirm that there had been prior complaints from somebody other than me. And since this all started, I've spoken to Mr. Sparks, and he said he knew that it was the Thurmans, somebody at Thurmans that had done it. Now, I don't know that he knows that for sure, or he just assumed. It's a pretty good assumption.
Okay.
But I just thought that was important for y'all to know that, I am not the only person who has complained about the noise.
Okay.
Now, if you got any other questions for me.
Anyone have any other questions?
No, not at this time.
Thank you very much for your time. Thank you. Anyone else like to speak for or against? Okay. We'll close the public hearing on that part. Is there any other questions or thoughts from anyone? Okay. I guess we'll move for a motion to accept or deny this item, agenda item A, the zone change at Railroad Street. Seeing,
I'll make a motion to deny.
okay. Is there a second?
Second the motion to deny the rezoning from R1 to B2 for Lot 1A, Block 64 of 2827 Railroad Street, case file ZON 2021-01.
Okay. Any other further discussion?
I'll just say that, we looked at this last time, and I don't think the facts have changed. The street's not sufficient to support the trucks. The can't spot zone inside of a group of other residential area business, because then it could be used for anything in the B2 category in the future. And I don't think it's the best use for this property. So that's why I'm making the motion.
Any other discussion?
I don't think anyone here didn't feel for Mr. Sparks in the position that he's in and wished that there could have been another solution, but changing the zoning right there just isn't the answer.
Anything else? Well, thank y'all. Again, all those in favor say aye.
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 All right. We'll move on to agenda
I
item.
oppose. I just want to make record. I oppose. You didn't ask for the opposers, but I do oppose.
Okay. Okay, Mr. Mills, thank you very much. Public item number 2, B, will be considered a specific use permit for an accessory apartment for Lot 7A, being part of Lot 7B, City Block 67, as described in deed from the Thomas Stanley to Glenn Anderson, dated April 21st, 2003, recorded in volume 1981, page 196 of DRNCT. This property is located at 225 East Parker Road. The request has been submitted by Brett and Heather Beal, case number SUP 2021-02.
All right, thank you. Elena Chafin again, city planner with City of Nacogdoches. The request is for a specific use permit for an accessory apartment. The property is zoned R1 single family and is developed as a single family residence with a detached garage / a shop. Per the zoning ordinance, an accessory apartment is allowed in the R1 single-family zoning district with approval of a SUP. The SUP process allows staff, the commission, and the city council the opportunity to review and impose any conditions, if necessary, on such development. On your screen, you'll see a copy of the survey of the property. This is an exhibit outlining the boundaries of the property and then the location of those existing improvements. And then the shop/garage is that structure shown in the upper right-hand corner, or I guess the northeastern corner of the property. The purpose of the SUP is to convert a portion of the existing garage into a small dwelling unit. There is no expansion of the building area or height or footprint being proposed with this SUP. The garage is approximately 27 by 42 feet long and approximately 1,000 square feet in size. The applicants, Mr. and Mrs. Beal, have stated that they plan to use the accessory apartment for their adult children when they come home from college. The main house has 2 bedrooms, and Mr. and Mrs. Beal have 3 children, 2 of which are in college and come home regularly during college breaks and when class is not in session. The applicant's proposing to renovate the northern portion of the structure and convert it into a 2-bedroom, 690 square foot apartment. The remainder of the structure will be maintained as a garage, and there will be no separate utility meters or connections for the new dwelling unit. The first floor, which is shown on your screen.
There will not be utilities, I'm sorry?
No, so for accessory apartments, you're not allowed to have any separate
Okay, that's what I was-
utilities or anything like that, yeah. And it's intended for, to serve immediate family, caretakers, things of that nature. The first floor will include the main living area, a kitchen, a bedroom, and a bathroom. And the entrance into the dwelling area will be from a small covered doorway on the east side of the building, which is interior to the lot. There will be a small loft on the upper level, which will include a second bedroom and a small living area. The loft area will also have a 3 by 4 foot window added to the north side of the building to allow light and air into the bedroom space, but there are no additional openings or lighting proposed on the upper level of the building.
I'll get out. I just gotta get to it. One day when I got time, I just put this to it and
The surrounding area is both developed as single-family residence and zoned R1 single-family, and the proposed SUP will not change the current zoning designation of the property or the uses that are permitted under the R1 single-family zoning district. The proposed accessory apartment is to be located on a 0.5 acre lot, and the zoning ordinance requires at least 0.19 acres for each dwelling unit in the R1 single family. So the addition is in compliance with the density of the R1 single family district and should not significantly affect the density of the neighborhood, and this is compatible with the surrounding single family properties. The future land use plan designates this area as commercial and single family residential. This future land use designation is consistent with the current zoning of the property, that R1 single family. And again, the approval of the SUP will not change the current zoning designation or any of those uses that are permitted under the current R1 zoning district. These are some site photos taken of the subject property along East Parker Street. The south side of the detached garage is not proposed to be modified, so the street view of the property should not be affected by the proposed SUP. So this view that you're currently seeing should be consistent even after the renovation. Staff did send out 13 notices to properties within the 200-foot notification area. At the time the staff report was written, we'd only received 2 responses, 1 in support and 1 in opposition of the request. But since then, we've received 4 more letters in support of the request, and we emailed those to you, and we also printed them out so you can have those at your place. And so as of today, we received a total of 5 responses, 4 in support and 4 in opposition. Specifically, the letter in opposition was concerned about privacy from the upper level opening of the additional dwelling unit into the backyard of that property owner to the north. In reviewing an application for an SUP, the commission must find that the criteria as outlined on your screen has been satisfied. Based on the findings that we outlined in the staff report and those mentioned in the presentation, staff is recommending approval of the request. And this item is scheduled to be heard by City Council on Tuesday, February 16th. And I believe the Beals are in attendance if the commission has any questions for them.
So is that going from one story to two-story?
The structure is already 2 stories, or I guess a story and a half.
Okay.
And so there is no proposed increase to the building envelope or building height, or no exterior structural changes.
Okay.
And if does the commission have any questions of staff at this time?
Anything, anyone?
Are there a large number of these in Nacogdoches?
There's not a tremendous amount. There are a few. Actually, the property to the north of this property received approval of a specific use permit for an accessory apartment back in 2011, but it's since expired. So sometimes we'll get these applications, they'll get approved, but an SUP does have an expiration timeline, and so if you don't begin construction in that timeline, then it becomes null and void. I know that there are a few. Unfortunately, I'm sorry, I can't recall offhand, but there's not a tremendous amount, but there are some. Yes, sir.
There's
And
one,
they're usually, I'm sorry?
I was gonna say, there's one at 412 East Parker.
Oh, okay. I didn't see that on the map.
Well, it may have predated special use permits. 'Cause it's been
Okay.
there a while.
Yeah, I know back in the 90s is whenever we did that zoning ordinance overhaul, and that's whenever a lot of those specific use permits were added. So we do have a lot of non-conforming uses out there. But thank you. We'll have to go back and add that to the zoning map.
Don't tell my neighbor I told you.
I do believe that we have some residents in attendance who would also like to address the commission, some of which submitted written responses.
One quick question. So this SUP, realistically, the benefit in it is it gives, it is very specific regulations to what can be done at this particular property, right? Is that's the benefit in doing it this way?
Yes, explicitly for accessory dwelling units, they are limited in size to 30% of the main residence. And so the proposed square feet of the addition is 690 square feet, which is within that 30% of the main residence. They aren't allowed to rent it out to people who aren't related to the family or who aren't on-site employees, like a caretaker or a servant or someone like that, and they're not allowed to have any separate utility meters or hookups to the property. So the intent is more like a mother-in-law suite for family or those who are employed on the property.
So I have a question. If down the road, the property was to sell and someone else wanted to make it some sort of a rental, who's going to monitor that?
So if a circumstance like that arose, typically, those are complaints that are received by the department. We don't necessarily, we're not proactive in that regard, but if we were to receive a complaint that those activities were taking place, we would open a case file, conduct an investigation. If we found evidence that was happening, then we would issue a zoning violation, and they would have to come into compliance within so many days, or we would begin to issue citations on that property owner.
And what would that entail?
I believe for Class C misdemeanors up to $1,000, and then it's
Per
$1,000.
citation?
Yes, ma'am, and it's like per day of the violation. So if they were to ignore the citation, then it would continue to compound until they either went to court or had some other resolution. But it would not go unmonitored or unregulated. We would enforce that specific use permit. And it does run with the life of the property.
And wouldn't if they were out of compliance, couldn't it be revoked also by council?
Yes, it could. So if, thank you for bringing that to my attention. So if it came to a period where they were just unwilling to come into compliance, then we could take that back to city council and request them to revoke that specific use permit.
Any other questions? Mr. Mills? Okay. Well, we will, if we could hear from the applicant now, Mr. and Mrs. Beal, if they'd like to speak on behalf of this, they're welcome to come up and speak.
We're happy to answer any questions that you have. I don't know if we have anything to say other than what's been presented.
Okay.
Also, I thought our letter said that this was at 5:30, so I don't know where I got confused or whatever, but I'm sorry that.
Sorry if we came in late.
We thought we were early.
Seeing that they don't want to speak, this is an open meeting, so if anyone would like to speak for or against, feel free to step up and please, again, state your name and your address, please.
Hello, my name is Samantha Morera. My primary residence is at 232 Bostwick Street. I also own the home at 219 East Parker Road, which is my guest home. Myself, my husband, Sergio, and our neighbors on Bostwick, Dick and Vicky Rudisil, who are here in attendance, submitted a letter dated April 4th with some photos. And in part, I would just like to read a section of that letter since some of the issues have been addressed already. And I have personally spoken with Ms. Chafin, and we've talked about some things. Question was asked that we have proposed concern about, so that's already been addressed. But I would like to read in part this. So personally, the proximity of the project to the owner's property line creates the most delicate concern as it questions our retention of a reasonable level of privacy. There is a 3 by 4 foot window at the top of the structure, and there is absolutely no obstruction to that. No trees, no fence, nothing. So preventing this invasion requires that the building aesthetics would be altered, as the current design plan being erected includes a window that has direct overview of our residence. This does not singularly impact us, as the clear sight line of the window violates a reasonable expectation of privacy due to the proximity of the project of other existing private property owner lines as well. So that's really one of our major concerns. It has basically an eagle's nest view of our property. I too have a 2-story home, and I'm more than welcome anyone, any of my neighbors, council included, to come and stand inside my home at the 2nd floor. I cannot personally see the grass because of the proximity of my house. I cannot see into the Beals yard, but it is a clear and open view of my pool area, my 2 pool houses, all of which I have gone through this permit process also, so I know that it's very extensive. So that's really kind of our concern. Next door is a neighbor on Parker at my guest house. Yes, you can see, but there are lots of lined trees. But in the backyard, there is absolutely zero whatsoever. And I've submitted some photos that show that it is an absolutely clear sight line. So there's literally no privacy. So that's my main concern that I wanted to come and present to you all and take into consideration. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Anyone else like to speak?
I'm Dick Rudisell, and we live at 314 Bostwick, next to the Moreras. And just reiterate what Samantha has said, that the way that the proximity of the building to the property line and with the window, they just look right down into our backyard. And there's no way to do a fence. I'm sure trees would take forever, but you know, that's where our back patio is, where our family get-togethers are, and our barbecue pit and our fun, you know. And so, you know, we're just kind of in plain open view of that. You know, that structure is very close to the property line. I'm sure it's legal, but it's very close to the property line. And it's tall, and our property, the way the elevation is, you know, our property is a little bit lower. So, I mean, it's just, you look right on us. So, you know, that's a big concern of ours. And then, you know, like it was mentioned earlier, I have a concern of long-term what could happen there. I'm sure the Bills don't intend to rent it, but they may not own that forever, and they may sell it, and someone come along and think they can rent it and do rent it, and we don't really have a good way to police that and, you know really if that's happening or not, unless it gets to be rowdy or something over there. And so, you know, that's a big concern. And if we start renting apartments in North Regay area, you know, I think that's deteriorating the property value over time, could, you know, help bring property values down. You know, North Gay area neighborhoods are pretty well-kept, nice homes, and have been for years, and, you know, it's single-family residence. We don't really want apartments there. Anyway, that's my concern. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anyone else like to speak?
I guess I kind of want to respond to that.
Again, if you don't mind stating your name and your address,
I'm
please.
Heather Olson Beal, and my name and my what?
And your address.
Oh, my address, 2534 Carroll, but this is about 225 East Parker.
Okay.
We don't, you know, we're not intending to rent that to another family, so that objection, I guess, is frustrating to me. We're intending to use it for, you know, our personal living space. We're not expanding the footprint of the existing garage. When we stand in our backyard, we see between 8 to 10 windows from their property. So to me, it just seems like, I mean, if this were gonna be disallowed, then no one in the entire town of Nacogdoches could ever have a window on a second-story house. But there's two-story houses all over the place. You know, our neighbors where we're currently living have a two-story house that does look into, I mean, I don't know, I've never been inside their house, but it certainly looks like if they were in the house and they looked out, they would be looking into someone's yard. So I don't really see that as unique. But I am really frustrated because there's been a lot of misinformation about this, about how we're trying to rent it out as commercial space and all this stuff, and those things are just not true.
Okay.
So y'all don't occupy the property at this time?
No, we're planning on moving in once the work over there is completed. We've had the roof redone, we've had it repainted. I appreciate the concern about potential deterioration of property values, but we had to have it appraised based on the work being completed, and it appraised like $50,000-$60,000 more. So I don't think that concern is legitimate either. I think it actually will raise the property values rather than lower them. But yeah.
Would you be opposed to a natural screen of some sort, like bamboo or some sort of plant that might break up the property line or provide some natural screening from your neighbors, if that was a condition imposed?
I don't know what that would look like. Like, as he was saying, like if we were to plant a tree, it would take.
That's a good thing about bamboo, it's faster.
Oh, it is?
Still takes some time, I think, but yeah.
Okay.
But as an example, and obviously this isn't gonna help you right now, but at the end of Parker, where Parker and Regay meet, when you go over to the other side of East Parker, that's a bunch of bamboo there planted, that very tall, thick planting, so just something I was thinking, but I don't know if your backyard would even be conducive to planting it, so.
I don't know a single thing about plants, so
Me either.
I'm reluctant to answer that just because I don't even know what that would entail, but I don't know. Anything else?
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Anyone else like to speak? Okay, we'll close the public hearing. Does anybody have any further questions for Elena, or thoughts, or? So they're just taking, to make sure they understand this, they're taking the whole bottom and they're making it, and then upstairs as well, is correct, right? They're, like, is it gonna?
It's just the northern portion of the building, so the southern half of the structure will be maintained as a garage, at least 20 feet in depth, to accommodate at least 2 off-street parking spaces. And it's that northern half. And then they're building an upper loft area as well. And I can go back to the exhibits.
I'm looking at the plans, I was just trying to, yeah.
Yeah, and so approximately half of the structure will be maintained as a garage. The other half will be transitioned to an accessory apartment.
Was this just an unfinished garage?
Yes, ma'am. It's currently very open garage / shop, and so it's just interior renovation. I'm sorry, I don't have any photos of the existing interior.
But of, just to make sure I understand this, the building that's there, that's next to the house, that's the shop part, but the garage is what's behind the house, correct? I'm just making absolutely sure.
No, I'm sorry for the confusion. So the main residence, with the 225 over it, there is, directly behind that, there is a office with a covered walkway. And so all that is considered part of the main residence. And then the detached shop, where they're proposing the accessory apartment, is in the northeast corner, at the end of the driveway.
It's their office part, but you're talking about the
It
actual
is.
shop part. That's why, okay, wanted to get
Yes, sir.
clarification, make sure.
Sorry for the confusion.
I have a picture that might clarify. I want to see where that is, where it was built. Would that be helpful?
No, I think we're good. Yeah, I think we're good. Thank you. Yes, and they were included in the letter that we sent to the applicant. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so they can actually see the structure.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Ms. Maria was just asking me if we had included the photos in the letter, and we did.
I do have one question. I noticed that the construction began before the permit was approved. Do you know what the circumstances of that were?
Yes, so the only construction that's taken place is to the exterior siding, which doesn't require a permit.
Okay.
And so when we found out that activity was taking place, we did send our inspectors out to the property and made sure that they weren't actually conducting any work interior to the structure that was associated with the permit. The only thing that they've done so far is steps to replace that exterior siding
Okay.
on the north side.
So this looks like the garage was added onto the back?
Yeah, so yes.
Was that approved?
So this property, and I can't remember offhand, was built prior to the adoption of our zoning ordinances. And I think maybe at one time that structure was being used as a garage and was transitioned to a home office. And so you have the main residence that fronts Parker Street, and then in the back, a covered walkway that leads to a office. And we have seen interior photos of that. It is used as an office living area. It's not being used as an accessory dwelling unit or anything like that. It's part of the main residence. I don't have an exact timeline of when that was constructed, but it was in the early 1990s. But I wasn't able to find the actual construction date. Now, the shop, I believe, was built in 2003 or early 2000s as an accessory structure to the main residence as a garage slash working shop.
And it's within its distance from the lot line and all that?
Yes, ma'am. Accessory structures are allowed a reduced setback from the main house, and so it does meet all the building setbacks of the R1 zoning district. Yes, ma'am.
The question I have, and I'm not sure how to state this right, but I'll just ask it. So realistically, the best way that I understand is the issues with this top window of this structure. And so my question is there some sort of I'm just asking out loud, is there some sort of a happy medium between the owners and the adjacent property owners of, I don't know, doing something different there? I'm just asking out loud, you know, just, it seems like that seems to be the only issue, is just that window overlooking these other yards. And I'm just asking, so that's.
Yeah, and we can request that the applicant come back to the
Yeah.
podium, but the purpose of the specific use process
Sure.
is to allow the commission to impose any conditions that may be necessary to address nuisances, you know, concerns from adjacent property owners. And so the commission could make a recommendation for approval with a condition that perhaps the window is removed or reduced or some sort of alternative to mitigate that privacy issue. And the commission could call the applicant back to the podium to discuss those alternatives in more detail if you like.
Do you mind
Yeah.
coming up and speaking about, I'm just thinking out loud, and it may not be, I'm just asking, you know, just wondering what your, I mean, is it, you know, that seems to be the issue, the only issue that I see here, or that, you know, and so I was just asking if that's something that would even be of consideration for you, just maybe eliminating that window altogether, and I'm, you know, doing something different.
Unfortunately, no, I like the window in the structure, and I don't view that as a reasonable,
Okay.
concern. They have 3 dormers on a 3rd story, on their property that are probably twice as high as this window. They look directly into our yard. If, in that area of Nacogdoches, 2-story homes are routine. There are windows in those 2nd stories. Privacy fences are 6 feet tall.
Yeah.
So any sort of imposition of, you know, some sort of control here would be really out of character with what we've done.
Understood.
Here in Nacogdoches. So I just don't see that as an issue. Now, the neighbors in front must have 100 feet between their special use building back there and their pool of yard space. We would certainly have no objection. They could erect anything they wanted back there. If they want to plant a line of bamboo, or they want to put an additional fence, I mean, it's their property. We would have no concern about that.
Thank you.
Can I make one more comment? I'm concerned, I do not know because I haven't seen the pictures, but I have been told that someone trespassed into our property to take pictures from our property onto another property. I feel nervous thinking about moving into a house where someone has trespassed to take photos, and if those photos are now being used to make some claim about what we're doing there, I'm not excited about that. I haven't seen them, I don't know if I'm allowed to see them, I don't know if that's public, but, I've been told that the pictures were from our backyard and we didn't give permission for somebody to be back there nosing around, so I'm just not excited about that.
Understood.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Help me a little bit as I'm looking at the picture. How far are we talking about from the pool to the fence? On the line drawing, it looks like the house is a considerable distance into the property from that line.
So the detached garage is approximately 10 to 15 feet from the northern property line. So if you look at the exhibit on your screen, you'll see the long driveway that leads up to the shop, and then the northern side of the shop is approximately 10 to 15 feet away from the property line that's shared with the neighbors to the north. Oh,
I was not clear. The approximate depth from the fence into the neighbor's yard,
okay.
the Morer's yard toward their pool. How far is the fence to their pool?
I've pulled up the aerial map to show you. So the subject property is approximately 190 to 200 feet in depth. And so if you look at the scale of that compared to the property immediately to the north, I mean, it's anywhere from 800 to 1,000 feet deep, that entire lot. And so just kind of eyeballing it, I would say at least the detached garage is 600 feet at least from the main residence of the property owner to the north. I'm sorry, I don't have approximate number, I don't have exact
No,
numbers,
that
but
gives me
just from kind of looking at it on a scale.
Okay.
Elena, just for my edification, an expectation of privacy is not one of the criteria for approval or consideration on specific use permits. I know we have nuisance, but there's no codification of just privacy rights, to my knowledge.
No, and the number 5 and 6, nuisances, you know, that, I think privacy falls under that nuisance prevention. It's not explicit, but it would fall within that category, including, you know, lighting and landscaping and things of that nature. If they were proposing exterior lighting that had the effect of invading the privacy, that would be considered not in conformance with the criteria for nuisances. If, you know, say it was a different scenario where, you know, the property to the north was closer to the subject property and there was less of a distance between, well then, and the subject property structure was higher. I mean, depending on the circumstances, privacy could be considered under that nuisance category, even though it's not explicitly outlined in the language.
Okay. I'm not sure legally it could, though. I mean, I just don't know if it would encompass that, because typically a nuisance is something that's coming from your property to another. And in this case, you're talking about receiving light from somebody else's property. It's not like
Yeah.
they're putting anything onto their property.
Yeah, I will say for single-family zoning districts, there is a higher level of expectation for privacy than, say, a multifamily development or commercial. So single-family development, they do have higher expectations as far as property rights for things like nuisances and privacy and things like that. So it's always something that we take into consideration as for these types of applications.
Any other questions? Okay, I guess we'll. Yeah. If you don't mind stepping up, if you don't mind, just because the microphone pick you up, if you don't mind, we just need it for record.
I appreciate them trying to improve the property. I'm Vicki Rudisill, and I live at 314
Thank
with
you.
him. My problem right now with it is that structure, they have a light that shines into our bedroom, and I mean, I can walk around and I see perfectly fine with that light. It's very disturbing, and if they're gonna put some kind of light permanently back there, I'm not gonna sleep very well. And that's kind of a nuisance. That's, you know, and you think you can't see it, but you can.
Okay,
Okay.
well, thank you very much. I guess we'll close the public hearing. Is there any other questions for Elena at this point? Okay. I'll ask for a motion for or against this special use permit for this accessory apartment.
Well, I'll put something out there. I move for approval of this special use permit.
Okay, do we have a second for that?
What did she say?
Set up approval for. Mr. Mills, is there not? So, take it.
We got a motion, no second?
You don't have a second? I'm sorry.
Well, did you want to put any conditions on that motion, or is it just a blanket motion?
At this point, it was a blanket motion.
Is there no second? Okay. Seeing there's no second, it does not approve. Is there any discussion regarding that?
I would make a motion to approve if we had reasonable conditions for light intrusion on the neighboring properties to the north. And it says in here that there's no plan for lights to be installed when it's finally done, but, I mean, even when it's being constructed, I think we should have a condition that they limit annoying lights going to the north property, but I would move to approve it. The special use permit 2021-02 otherwise.
Is there a second for that motion?
I'd second that motion.
Okay.
And I'll, just to expand on my thoughts there, I live at 413 East Parker, just outside of the notice range, but I saw the sign, which was the way I knew that this was, so the signs work, I guess. But we had the same situation. A couple of my neighbors had renovated and added second-story rooms to their house, which didn't require a permit or anything. But they could see into our backyard. And several of the houses around us have the same situation. So I understand about the privacy concerns because I'm a recipient of that myself, but I do think that that use is in keeping with the rest of the neighborhood, given how my neighbors can see into my yard at least. So that's my thought process.
And just to clarify, construction activities are limited in the city from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. So the city doesn't actually permit any night construction or anything like that, especially adjacent to a single family. So there's that kind of built-in protection for construction activities, just as an FYI to the commission.
All those in favor, say aye.
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 Those opposed?
Aye.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mills. We will move on to agenda item number C, sign variance. Consider a variance to the sign ordinance for a pole sign that exceeds the area height and setback requirements for property located at 1122 North University Drive. This request has been submitted by David Sal with University Realty Ltd., case number SVO 2021-01.
Thank you, Elena Chafin, city planner. The applicant is requesting to add a new sign panel to the bottom of their existing freestanding sign, their freestanding multi-tenant pole sign located at the northern entrance of the University Mall. The addition will not increase the height of the sign, but it will increase the sign area from 165 square feet to 192 square feet. The applicant is also requesting to increase the sign area of their directional sign located at the northern driveway entrance from 3.7 to 7 square feet. Just to provide some background information, the sign ordinance, section 78-101, area placement and height, limits the maximum area permitted for freestanding signs based on the total length of street frontage for that particular development. This development has 328 feet of street frontage. This amount of street frontage allows a maximum sign area of 175 square feet. So the proposed addition would exceed the maximum by about 17 square feet. Yeah, right there. The sign ordinance section 78-77 has a list of signs that don't require a permit. One of those are traffic directional signs. They don't have any kind of advertising or copy, and that have a maximum size of 4 square feet and essentially direct traffic within the development. So you see the sign on the left has mall entrance with an arrow, and the sign on the right, they've removed that and have more of a University Mall general advertising, and they are increasing the area of the sign. In the staff report, we provided a table that kind of just provides a compare and contrast of what's existing versus what's being proposed. These are some site photos that we took of the subject property, just showing how the sign exists today. The distance from the street frontage, again, the location is not being proposed to change. The height isn't increasing. It's simply adding an additional panel to the bottom of that freestanding sign. And then the mall entrance sign is also not being proposed for a new location. They're simply replacing the sign face. Whenever the Planning and Zoning Commission considers variances to the sign regulations, they must take into consideration the criteria that's outlined on your screen. Those include a literal application of the chapter that would not allow the property to be used. If the sign variance were denied, the property could still be used. The sign currently functions for the location. The increase is not something that would be denied based on a physical site constraint or anything like that. The second criteria is the granting of the requested variance will not be material or detrimental to the property owner or the adjacent property owners in the vicinity. And staff finds that the granting of the variance would not directly or materially be detrimental to the property owners within the vicinity. The third is any hardship that is not in any way the result of the applicant's own action or the result of a self-created or personal hardship or for a financial reason alone. The applicant did not provide any other hardship in their rationale for the application, except for essentially just wanting to increase the sign area. The fourth is the granting of the variance would not be contrary to the general objectives of the chapter of the sign ordinance. These objectives include balancing the rights of individuals to convey their messages through signs and the right of the public to be protected from potential harm, promoting the health, safety, welfare, convenience, and enjoyment of the public, protecting the public from damage or injury caused or attributable to distractions and destructions caused by improperly designed or located signs, protect and promote property values, promote community environmental setting and appearance, especially where scenic beauty is important, and to support the objectives of the individual zoning districts. Based on staff's evaluation of the request, in comparison to the evaluation criteria, staff finds that the request doesn't meet the criteria, and therefore we do recommend denial of the application. And I believe the applicant, Mr. Sal, is in attendance, and he can answer any questions that the commission may have. This is not a public hearing. So if the commission doesn't have any other questions for staff, then I'd like to allow the applicant to speak.
So is there any, obviously, I'm just making sure there's not any sightline issues, like it's not gonna cut off where somebody can't see, like traffic-wise. I think it's far enough to the hill that it's probably not an issue. I'm just asking.
Yes, there's no sight line or sight visibility or any really physical safety issues that would be created by the sign. We don't find it'll be detrimental or dangerous to the public or any adjacent property owners. We just find that it doesn't meet the other criteria as outlined in the ordinance. There's no unique physical circumstances of the property. There's no undue hardships that are unique to the property that don't apply to similarly situated property in Nacogdoches. So while it doesn't really have any kind of detrimental public safety effect, it simply doesn't, staff feels that it doesn't meet all of the criteria as outlined in the ordinance.
Okay, other questions? Okay, thank you. Would the applicant like to come up and speak?
Hello. David Sal, I was kind of confused on what is kind of out of the scope of what you were talking about. You were saying that they were missing something and there was something wrong with what you were just talking about. Did everything go okay? Okay, I'm confused. Sorry, I got a little messed up. I was confused about when I was trying to understand it. So really what we're wanting to do is kind of modernize the sign and kind of get it back to where it was before. One of the things that you kind of see in the pictures and stuff like that is that it is something that we could do upgrading to. Now, adding the signs to it also can help with the community as well, as far as letting other people know that there's new businesses and other kind of things that are happening at the facility, which is also opening up for jobs and other people that are here in the community. So us upgrading these signs is also helping with being able to get people to have jobs and find different ways of outlets that they can do here in Nacogdoches. And so that's kind of what we were looking for as far as the sign goes. As far as the directional sign, we have 2 directional signs on either side of our entrances. The central one, we figured it would look nicer if it said University Plaza, since we're changing the name, to have that as the actual entranceway. If it's something that we need to add like an arrow to it, we'd be happy to try to work with y'all to make sure that that's something that's possible.
In updating everything, when do you plan on doing something to the driveway?
That is actually in the process of doing that as well. Concrete work is a lot harder to do than the signs are, and so it's kind of an all-around process that we're working on. But I completely agree, and I completely understand. We have that in our mind, and it's something that we are working on.
So how many more spaces are you creating versus signage that's existing?
So existing with what we have right here, we're looking to add the actual square footage. I don't know if it's, sorry. We actually are trying to, what it is if you look at the pictures, we're taking away where it says University Mall and lowering that to the bottom and adding a larger sign up top where it will give us 2 larger facilities for corporate venues or any kind of else that wants to come into the mall, or well, it's not a mall anymore, it's a plaza. And also, we have the ability to add more signs to that, hopefully in the future, if it's something that we can work on with y'all. But as for now, we have 2 large spaces that we are able to actually get out, and then we have another small space, and then we're working on making another larger space on, larger space on the back end to actually be able to have a larger venue there also. As of right now, we've actually done a lot of the construction that's been done for the front of the building, to where we've done new designs and all that kind of stuff and added glass work to it also. And those facilities that are there, we actually have room to do 2 medium-sized corporate facilities or do 1 large facility, or we can also break it up into multiple other ones as well. We kind of use it to fit the size of who we're trying to work with.
So ultimately, again, like it says, you're just moving the name down to the bottom and adding 2 for larger box users or whatever you're using for the top is the plan, and then just updating, making the turn signage just a little bit bigger. In other words, just the arrow sign or the signage or whatever it is at each entrance just a little larger.
And the ones on the actual entrances on the edges, we haven't updated those signs yet. That's a future endeavor, but we wanted to make sure that we have that presence at the very beginning, whenever you pull into the actual stores. So that's what we're working on right now.
When you do that, are y'all painting that metal?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yeah, all of that, the electrical and everything else will be worked on. Hopefully, it's all working, everything's okay. There's no issues. We've had repairs that have been done to it, but there's no other issues on that. Now, as far as the painting and stuff, yes, that'll all be updated when we actually change the signs and get that done.
Does each store or business have to pay for their own name to go on that?
No, most of them don't.
Okay.
Now, there is an option if somebody was wanting a different sign or size, that yes, at that point, there would be something that would have to be discussed with the landlords and the owners. But most of the time, when you rent this space, it kind of comes with that actual also.
So Gordon's isn't there.
No, Gordon's not there anymore. That's one of the things is we also want to update it as far as like being able to remove, fix those things. Well, whenever we have signs like that and we're adding new ones to it, it's not that hard, and getting a new one in there is not that hard either. But as far as like what we're trying to do, where it's a scope of work on the entire thing, it's going to cause some issues as far as like moving it and getting that stuff done.
I'm just trying to think if you're gonna, you have some spaces available now, but you're wanting to add more.
Right.
But you're not using the ones you have.
That's because of the people that we have contacts with through our facility and the rental, like our actual rental agents and stuff. We have access to different facilities that can move into those. Now, we're working out with contracts and all those kind of things, but that's something that they're discussing with them. And hopefully what we're working on is to be able to fill those signs with the company that can help us here in Nacogdoches in the community. Build more jobs and all that kind of stuff too.
Didn't quite understand what you just said.
I'm sorry, I apologize. I talk fast sometimes, I'm so sorry. So we have with our contract agents, like our leasing agents and stuff like that for the business that I work with, they have access to other facilities like Old Navy's or TJ Maxx's, stuff like that, stores that you've heard of. We have access of talking with those type of people to get them moved into a facility that we own. With that, that's one reason why we want to make sure that we have an updated sign, is so that when we do have a new facility that wants to move in or a new business that wants to move in, we can make sure we have available, signage for them as well. With doing this, it gives us that preemptiveness to be able to talk to them and say, hey, yeah, of course you can have a sign. We've already got it ready for you. We're just waiting. So that helps with us being able to get stores and new jobs into the community. And I understand it's just a sign, but it does help in the long run.
Yeah, I didn't hear a response to Stephanie's question about you want to build more, but you're not, the ones you have aren't leased. Does that make?
No, ma'am. I think that there's a confusion. We've actually changed it from being a mall itself to where it's an actual, it's more of a strip mall. And we're upgrading and adding new things to it throughout the month, throughout the year. I mean, we've been doing it for almost 2 years now. And so with that, we've actually been able to get 2 new stores that we've moved in there, and also a Dollar Tree that we've moved in there during the construction time as well. And so we've added already 3 businesses and, 2 businesses, and upgraded one of the businesses to actually have that facility. And the names like City Gears, Ollie's, and the Dollar Tree, those have all been added within the last few months, if not the last year. So we've already started changing that. Yeah, I'm sorry, I misunderstood the conversation.
It's a little hard. We're in a glass box.
Yeah, I know.
Really
Yeah.
okay.
So with all the empty space that's gonna be enough signage for you.
Yes, and that's where we got our signs from, is the
Because I
planning
see
out
a
that
lot
kind
of
thing.
empty space.
Yes, ma'am, of course you do. And then that's kind of what we're working on changing, is trying to get those new businesses in there. And this is kind of one of those steps to being able to get new businesses in there, is being able to offer them that ability to have something at the top of the sign, or however it looks.
Is the sign gonna look basically like it does now, which is like
It's gonna have
two
the pylons.
steel beams and a
Yes, sir, because the
kinda
beams that are there, because we don't want.
landscaping at the bottom?
Oh, we'll fix that. Yes, sir. Of course, landscaping. We'll take care of that. We don't want to do too much right now with the work that we have to do to it, so.
Right. Yeah, it's a little dated.
Yes, very much so. And that's kind of why we want to upgrade it and try to get that to where it's looking nicer on University, because North Street's filling up. We've got to move somewhere, and we want to make sure University is the next place it can go to.
Yeah, and I understand that. I just want to make sure we don't like allow you to expand it, but then it's just a bigger dated sign.
Of course, of course. And I don't know if you have any of the photos from the actual facility now. We have changed the front dramatically to the point to where you probably wouldn't recognize it if you've been here long enough from what it used to be. There's no front entrance anymore. Basically, we're working on making that an actual facility, a facility entrance for different businesses that can actually go there, so that they can actually shop and do that too. We're moving different, like Tea Sandwiches is also moving to a different place. We're working on making sure that that's something that we work on.
So this is just one part of the updating process, in other words.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Any other questions for the applicant? Yeah, you good? Okay,
Yeah.
thank you very much.
Yeah, not a problem.
So Lana, ultimately, the situation is that, so the only thing that's gonna really change about the building is they're gonna add an additional, where it says University Plaza, which is, as best I can tell, about another, what is that, 3 foot?
It's about 2.5 feet that they're
2.5
adding
feet,
to,
and it's the same
to the
width.
bottom.
And so there's honestly adding another panel to the bottom, and the top, they're just gonna cut into 2 to add 2, in other words.
So it's not a significant increase, and staff understands that. It's not intrusive, it's not anything that people may even notice. During our review, we're basically looking to see if the request meets the criteria for a variance, which is heavily conditioned upon physical, hardships, things that are unique to the property, things that would actually change the visibility of the sign due to, certain circumstances. Sometimes it's elevation, sometimes it's floodplain, sometimes there's all different things to take into consideration. And we're essentially just doing a strict application of the criteria.
So my question is, I'm just asking about that. So the hardship, I'm not saying, I don't know if this is the right place that it's in here, but ultimately they are changing. So whenever this was built, and whenever this sign was built and the mall was built, it had one use, or that was the way it was. Now, obviously, the use of this structure has changed dramatically as far as going from a mall to a strip center. So does that change the sign variance for this as far as saying, not say hardship, I just, does it go to a different route? I guess I don't know how else to say it.
The circumstances have changed.
Okay,
It was a mall in the essence of you had one direct access point, and then there were internal corridors where you could access the different developments. They've gone through major renovation where now those suites have direct exterior access.
Correct.
So you don't have to actually go into the building to access one or more stores. You can just direct, So the configuration has changed, and the size and makeup of those tenants has also changed. I'm not sure that I can't confirm that they've actually increased the number of tenants or if it's more of the configuration. But that's generally not,
I was just wondering about like you said, the circumstances, obviously,
Right,
the
is it
usage
the
has changed a
overall
little bit.
square footage of the building that the sign ordinance goes by, or is it just the usable space?
For freestanding signs, for those pole signs you see out by the street, those are based on your actual street frontage. So depending on the frontage that you have at the public street, that's what dictates your freestanding signs.
with 380
Your wall signs, those signs that you actually see on the face of the building, those are dictated by the length of the width of that tenant space. So, if the dollar, was it General Dollar or what have you, if you have a tenant space that's 100 feet in width, well, that's gonna get more wall signage than one that's 75 feet and what have you. And so it's two different criteria for the two different sign types. Now, the commission could find that the renovations dictate a unique circumstance that wasn't applicable to the property at the time that the sign was constructed. That's your prerogative. In staff's technical review, we didn't find that that was a unique circumstance, but certainly is one that the commission could find based on the review criteria to support a recommendation.
And as far as like the arrow signs, obviously, again, it's just about getting a bigger sign, in other words. Just, yeah.
And again, the increase is not significant. You know, the main change is really no longer a directional sign. It's more of just a sign. And the size is increasing, so it no longer qualifies as a directional sign. Really, it's a pylon sign, but this variance would approve it as is. And so part of the approval is these sign plans. Once they're approved, if the applicant wanted to make additional changes, they would have to come back to the commission for increases in size or height or what have you. So what you see is essentially what you're approving for the changes.
Can we make conditions on the sign that they do some sort of landscaping there along with it?
Yes, so the commission can impose physical conditions to mitigate any kind of negative impacts that may be created because of the increase of the sign or what have you. We just need to make sure that we tie it back to one of these criteria. So, you know, the granting of the variance will not be contrary to the general objectives that are outlined in the sign ordinance. And if you look in your staff report, we did outline those objectives. And one of those actually includes promoting community environment, promote community environmental setting and appearance, especially where scenic beauty is important. And so in order to satisfy that requirement, the commission could impose a condition that additional landscaping is provided along that section of street frontage to make the request more in line with the objectives of the sign ordinance. Does that make sense? So there could be things that you include in your recommendation that offset or mitigate some of these other items.
And then I guess the other thing I think about too is just like even these smaller pylons, if you go to just an arrow on them, you know, I don't know that it matters or not, but just having that as some sort of a stipulation as well.
So just to give a little bit of guidance, if the commission was, during their discussion, decided that they did want to recommend approval of the sign with a condition for additional landscaping in order to maintain the objectives of the signed ordinance, they could find that all the other items have been satisfied, including a hardship which could be related to changes in design of the facility, other items as long as it's some sort of physical condition, which there is a physical condition, and so that is within the prerogative of the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. I will move to, and there's no, in this particular situation, there's no open public hearing, correct, on this?
Correct. There's no public hearing for this item.
So we'll move to a motion for or against for the sign ordinance.
I'll make a motion. I'd like to make a motion to, well, it's gonna be a little complicated, to make sure I get this right. Approve the application for a variance, case file SV 2021-01 with the following stipulations, that for the the main sign, I'll just call it the main sign, that an increase to 192 square feet would be approved, but due to the additional space that's going to take up on the road frontage, there would need to be a sufficient amount of landscaping around the base of the sign and in front on the street frontage to retain some of the natural beauty in that area. And then on the directional signs, that it be modified just to state entrance possibly, or some other directional word and an arrow, and the logo would have to be omitted from those signs. Did you get that one?
Yes.
Okay.
I'll second that motion.
Okay. Any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
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 All right, all those opposed? No. Motion carries. We'll move on to number 7 then. Discussion and possible action on future agenda items. The planning and zoning member may inquire about a subject for which notice has not been given, a statement of specific factual information, or the recitation of existing policy may be given. Any deliberation shall be limited to a proposal to place the subject on an agenda for a subsequent meeting. Does anybody have anything that they want to discuss or question or talk about? Anything that see in town or? Elena, do you have anything to say?
We don't have anything new.
Okay.
No.
We're up to speed then, right?
Yes.
Okay. Wonderful. Then I guess, if that's everything, then I will adjourn our meeting. It is 6:24. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
I'm tired.
Do we need to just leave